Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would sit down and do a video for you guys. Get a sip of water first. Alright. Give you guys a forearm shot. And let's talk about this 52 set study. I've got a couple of problems with it. People are citing it as good research, and it's not. And I've made it very clear in previous videos, and I probably need to do this more often for the evidence-based crowd. Because there are problems with the evidence-based crowd. There are problems with exercise science as an actual science. The quality of the research is piss poor at best. And here's the issue. There was a study done, and this is one of several studies on this, and even Eric Helms is involved, a bunch of really respected researchers. And people are like, why don't you link stuff? I'm going to link these in the comments this time. I rarely link studies. I probably need to do it this time. All right. This study that they did by all these respected researchers, if we accept this study as valid, it means that it invalidates every study that used reps and reserve or RPE in the testing. Okay? All right, guys, there's a bit of protein shake on my cheek right there. All right. I digress. Because it found that in at least one case, an experienced lifter misjudged the reps and reserve by 11. 11! They misguessed it by 11. And it was really common for people to misguess their reps and reserve by 4 or 5. Inexperienced lifters, these were not noobs. Okay, and a lot of these studies that have looked at this have found that that's consistently the problem. Experienced lifters are terrible at judging their reps and reserve of their RPE, thus making it a very difficult modality to use. Very difficult. That's why coaches need footage. This is why I make my lifters film stuff for me to see, because when I say 1 rep in reserve, I know what I'm looking for a rep in reserve. I want to see that bar speed change, because then I know they're fatigued. Okay. Or they can just do some stuff to failure. There's a problem. Lifters are terrible at it, because these are studies when they were blinded. They blinded the weights. They couldn't see how much weight on them. They put opaque bags over the plates so that the lifters don't know how much weight's on the bar, and they're told to take it to, whatever RPE. They're terrible at it. If they don't know how much weight they're lifting, they can't do it. The majority were inaccurate. They could not get it right. Only a minority of people could get it dead on accurate. We're talking like 10% could nail it consistently. 10, 20%. So here's the problem. You've got a study on volume that used reps and reserve with all these sets. And we know that people who have a low neural drive and not good training history, who aren't used to lifting real heavy, they got to be pretty close to failure to get results. Or they have to do just tons and tons of volume. That's the only way it works, because their training is lazy. See where I'm going with this study? Their test subjects were lazy. Now, granted, people were like, well, they only did the 52 sets for 2 weeks. Yeah, but they started them at over 20 sets and built. And they still found that the groups that did the most sets have the most muscle growth. And it was only for quads. All right, fine. Okay, what were the test subjects? Average 80 kilos body weight. I'm not going to go into the plus or minus. The average was 80 kilos body weight. The average was like 5.1 years of training history. The average max squat was 1.7 times body weight. What? These better be women. Oh, they were men. You're telling me these guys with 5 years of training experience are weaker than my girls who have less training than that I coach? I'm talking meet legal squats. What? Raw, no wraps. What is that? What is their average squat then? 1.7 times body weight. 136 kilos. That is less than 4 plates. That's just under 300 pounds. That was their average. That meant a bunch of the guys are squatting 250. I have a female lifter whose vlogs I put up who is drug-free, who has been lifting weights less than 3 years, who squats like 270. And she's not 80 kilos. Okay, well, let's get that clear. She's 150 pounds. She competed in the 148 in her last meet by skipping breakfast that morning. That's what she did to make weight. We just didn't eat breakfast. All right, so she was like 147. All right, guys. These guys are lazy as hell. These were a bunch of lazy ass lifters who do not know how to train. So this is your test subjects to show this ultra high volume using all of the sets or reps in reserve. Again, I'm going to go over and say that if we accept that other study as valid, if we as a community accept that other study as valid, we can just throw out any study that doesn't do to failure because we have no way to assess how hard they trained for rep work. So any study in which one of the variables is not failure versus to failure, if they are not all training to failure, which we have studies that do that, we can throw it out right off the bat. Because you have no way to control. You have no control. Because you're leaving it subjective to the lifters. And we know from this study that 80% of lifters can't accurately judge their reps in reserve or RPE. They're not capable of doing it. I'm going to bet most of these lifters were incapable of doing it. You know how I know? Look how fucking weak they were at 5 years of lifting. These guys are averaging 180 pounds body weight with basically 300-pound max squat. Wow. Oh, that was the average test subject. That was their average. These are advanced lifters. These are noobs. These are fucking noobs. I mean, okay, if they're doing 20 reps with the 300, not a max, all right. That might be advanced lifters. You guys have seen me do that. And I'm an old man. All right, I digress back over to the point. You know what I think? I'm not even going to get into whether the measurements were accurate. We don't even need to go there. Let's assume they were. Let's assume the sample size was large enough. Let's just assume all those things. Let's assume it was well done science with a large sample size and double blind measurements. Okay, that's cool. Let's just, we know it wasn't, but let's run with that. I have an alternative explanation. We go back over to what we know, that people who train like 37 reps from failure, because there are 2 reps in reserve, were probably 7. They need a lot of volume to see gains. So all these guys, all of them, by the way, on this high volume training, all 3 groups really, they all gained muscle and strength. They had 300-pound squats. They've been squatting, they've been lifting for 5 years. They have been lifting for 5 years. What in the hell have they been doing for the last 5 years? How did they, what? So you made them do a little bit of volume finally because they're all training 7, 8, 10 reps from failure anyways. They're half-assing everything they do, or they wouldn't be that weak at that body weight. We already know they don't train hard. So then you make them do a bunch of volume, and then they finally, for the first time in their life, finally got to some hard sets because they got, I don't know, to set 45 of the week finally. And then it started getting tough from just the total fatigue. So then they start getting some mechanical tension on the upper threshold muscle fibers for the first time in 5 years. And then they made some gains. Because had any of them been making measurable gains for the previous year, they wouldn't be averaging a 300 squat. I think this is a valid explanation for this study. I think this is a valid explanation for why you saw it. I will not be putting any of my advanced lifters on 52 sets. Sorry. And any of you who read this study and decide that that's what you're going to do with your clients, based on this study, really? I think you need to get a new career if you do that. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. And I'll talk to you guys next time.